Hey, Pascal here, nice to see you again. So you got the GoPro Hero 7, but your footage still doesn't look as professional as you want it to be. So then you should keep watching this video, because here are my best tips to make your footage on every camera, including the GoPros, look better instantly. I'm here right now at the Talangalang rice terrace in Ubud on beautiful Bali. It's such a beautiful place, but go here in the morning. There are far less tourists and it looks beautiful with the light, great for drone shots. And of course I also have the GoPro Hero 7 with me. And now I want to give you some tips on how to get better footage with that. And like in this video, I want to treat the GoPro Hero 7 like a normal camera, like not just like an action camera like most people see it. Because at the end it's nothing else. It's just a camera with a wide angle lens, more like a fisheye lens. And that's the important thing. You need to understand what kind of shots you can do with that lens, with using that fisheye effect. Because let's say you have a normal camera and you would use a more narrow lens, like a 50mm or 70mm or something like that, then of course you usually get different shots with that, or you use it for different shots than you would do with a 12mm or an 8mm or something like that. Okay, I'm talking micro four thirds, not like 24 or 15mm. So with the GoPro you're a bit limited because you always have a wide angle lens. And that means that you should mostly use it for shots that look good in wide angle. So what I usually love to do is put the person somewhere and having a nice background. I'm right now in the middle of the rice terrace here, but let's say we're up again, then it could be a nice shot to put Ewol, the friend, inside the frame and showing the rice terrace while he is standing there and watching in there and so on. So this is usually a great shot that you can do with a fisheye lens or with wide angle in general. And it's also what we did on Mount Egan, a video that I published I think 2 weeks ago. Because yeah, it's an epic spot. You want to see the scenery, you want to see a lot in the frame of like the acid lake and so on, but you also want to see a person interacting with that, and fisheye lenses, wide angle lenses, are perfect for that. So that's the first tip here. Really think about what are the best shots that you can get with a wide angle lens. And to get some inspiration of that, you can of course watch a lot of videos and movies and always ask yourself, what lens did they use? Is it wide angle or is it more narrow? If it's wide, then you could probably get a similar shot with a GoPro. So after you start thinking about your lens and what you can do with that, with the GoPro, what's also important is the framing. So you probably heard about that you want to put objects in different places in the shot. And what you usually use is the rule of thirds. So you have 1/3 left, 1/3 in the middle, and 1/3 right. And you want to place your object somewhere around that. So it usually looks nice if you have your object to the left or the right. And this works incredibly good with the GoPro in my opinion, because you have this wide angle, and then when in one area of your shot is a person or another object or something, then you can see a lot in the other part of the image. So if I put a person to the right, you can still see a lot of the surrounding to the left side, and that's amazing. And it's a bit harder to do with narrow lenses. It depends, of course, how far you're away from the object and so on, but it's definitely easier and usually looks nicer with a wide angle lens. So really think about your framing, try to put your objects or the object that your focus is on in the left or the right corners, not the corners, but in the thirds. Like you can use something like a grid. I will display it here that you see what I mean. A nice feature to have on the GoPro would be to have this grid that you usually have on other cameras, because then you can perfectly see where in the frame you should put your object. But I would say, especially if you use other cameras or drones where you have this grid, then you get a feeling for that pretty quick. What you should also consider when it comes to framing is where your person is looking at. Because let's say I put a person to the right in the frame and the person also looks to the right, and it looks a bit like this person is looking into a wall. So it looks a lot better when the person is looking to the left when it's to the right in the frame. And the opposite, of course. If you put your person to the left, the person should look to the right. I mean, if the person looks completely away from the camera, then it doesn't matter that much. but that's how you should usually position your object. And also the same for cars, for example. When a car is driving from the left to the right, then you should position it in the left part of the frame. So little framing tips here. It counts for every camera like mentioned before, but for the GoPro you should also consider that, because a lot of people buying GoPros and they don't really have a photography or videography background, so they don't really know how it works and how to frame the shots. So the next tip is pretty quick, and this is that you should think of lighting. And usually with a GoPro you're outside, so the best way to get awesome light is to use golden or blue hour light. Right now we're in the morning here, we catch the sunrise here at the rice terrace. Oh man, it looks so good here. And this is a blue hour, and you always get best light when you have a sunrise. Like, I really love to get up early and catch the sunrise. I know a lot of people don't like that. I mean, on a usual day I don't like that either, but when I know there's a great sunrise and I can get great footage, this is always a good motivation to get up early. And I would say I personally prefer sunrise over sunset. So the first thing is that when the sun is up, I still have some time to shoot videos, right? Like when I'm at sunset and the sun goes down, then the light is gone. There's no point in really making videos anymore. But with sunrise you don't have that problem, and it also looks a bit nicer. Usually you have a bit more like fog in the air and so on. It gives a nicer feeling. I don't know why, but it just looks all nicer on sunrise. So when you want to get the perfect lighting for your shots, then do it on sunrise or sunset. So the next tip is that you should move your camera or your GoPro, because if you only have steady shots, like, I mean, of course it's a bit easier to get the shot, and especially before you have had this nice stabilization in the GoPro, it was also easier to get stable shots when you just hold it in one place. But today we have this hyper smooth stabilization, and it's so good that you can simply move your GoPro like you see in the shots that I put in here now, because it just looks better when the camera is moving on and you also have a subject that is moving or so on. Like right now with Ewald here walking up the rice terrace, that looks great. So definitely find ways to move your camera. Usually side movements work pretty good, but of course you can also do like forward movements, just walking behind the subjects or something like that. That usually looks good, and it makes your footage look a lot better, especially with the hyper smooth stabilization, because it really looks like it's shot on a gimbal or a slider. And that brings us to the next tip, and this is simply that you should make sure always that you get stable footage, because there's nothing worse than having totally shaky footage. Of course, like a little bit of shake sometimes is actually good, sometimes you just want to have a bit like handheld effect, especially when you do action scenes, but in that scenes, like, let's be honest, especially with travel videos, you usually don't have it so much. So yeah, like the easiest way to make sure that you get stable footage with the GoPro Hero 7, and I actually see that a lot in the comments, is that you should upgrade your firmware, because the original firmware that comes with the GoPro Hero 7, at least when you bought it, like in the time that I bought it, is that it doesn't have this hyper smooth stabilization enabled for 4K 60, and if you want to shoot 4K 60, which is important to get smooth footage, you should update your firmware, because then you get it. And yeah, that really makes a huge difference, as you can see in the videos. Some people were commenting that under my GoPro cinematic video a few weeks ago, that there is no hyper smooth stabilization in 4K 60, and it's not true. It is there, you just have to update your firmware. So make sure that works, and of course also watch my other video where I show you how to walk and move your camera to get stable footage, because that also helps you a lot. So I'm going up the stairs now again. And yeah, I mean, at the end, it's really not about the camera that you use. It's just about knowing how to use cameras and knowing about lenses and focal lengths and so on. So like mentioned before, with the GoPro, you have a very wide angle. So it's important to know. It's a bit tight here. Hello. Oh, take video. Oh. The locals here are so cool. Thank you. So the camera is really not the most important thing. As you can see, it's more important to know how to use it. And of course, what's also important is like how you edit it, your settings and stuff like that. But I have other tutorials for that on my channel, so don't forget to hit the subscribe button now. And if you have any questions or you want to add something, then feel free to leave me a comment below. I answer to every comment. So yeah, hope to write you then and see you in the next video.